Here's a little guide on how to use the crop sequence calculator. So it's relatively easy. At the top will be some radio clicks, so you can either pick the Katanning or Wongan Hills dynamic crop sequence trial to look at the results of those experiments. When this is first up, only Katanning is available. Then you pick the crops that you're interested in. So in year 1, which at Katanning was 2008, you can choose from 10 different crops. So barley, canola, fallow, which isn't really a crop, field pea, green manure, lupin, oat and hay, oats, wheat, or wheat plus the seed dressing jockey. So let's just stick with barley at the moment. Then you can go to the next year, which is 2009 or year 2, and again you can pick different plant types. So let's just pick canola. So we're going, and you'll see a photo appearing. That's the actual photo of one of the plots in 2009 at Katanning, showing you what canola after barley looked like. And then the only option in 2010 is wheat. It's wheat plus jockey as the only treatment available, because that's the only treatment that we did. We sowed the whole trial to wheat plus jockey. If you scroll down, every time you select a different plant to use in the rotation, these experimental returns change. So the yield will change, the grain price, and you tried to use like a 5-year average sort of prices. The costs will change, the costs that we had in our trials, and then it works out a gross margin. So if we change from canola to fallow, you can see that those figures change because there is no yield, and it's only the cost of doing the fallow. Let's go back to the canola. Over the 3 years it works out the gross margins, then it adds it up for you, so you can see what the three-year gross margins would be, and then you can go through the options to see what would have made the money. Above there'll be some comments which we're still adding into at the moment, but it'll say things like barley grass and brome grass are building up in this sequence, those sort of comments, and you may need to take some action in the 3rd or 4th year. So we've shown you what our results were in the trials in those particular years, but you may want to use this little tool there to just look at some options for yourself. So you may think that the yields are low or high in our experiment. You may think the grain price is not what it is in this particular year. And similarly, your costs may be higher or less, particularly for something like our oat and hay option, where your cost of production might be lower than what we've put in. Let's just say that grain prices for canola went up to 600, being wishful thinking here, and you'll see that the gross margins for that immediately change, and the total gross margin over the 3 years change. So I mean, this is something that you can do with a calculator, and that's exactly what this is, a crop sequence calculator, and it's just a nice way to just change things, particularly if your yields are better than what we got, particularly in 2009 at Katanning. It was a fairly tough year. Below is some data for historical data, and this is using results from 1974 up to 2007, and it just compares the last 2 years of the sequences you've selected. So it compares how much better wheat after canola is compared to wheat after wheat, and all the comparisons are only going to be wheat after lupins or canola or fallow compared to wheat after wheat. And there are 2 ways to look at it. One is this histogram, which just says that the most common thing is about a 250 kilo yield improvement, and that's the same as what we got in our experiment. But there are some occurrences, not that often, when you get much better yield returns, and there are either side of 250, there's about the same number of times that you'll get no yield improvement or a half a tonne improvement. Another way to look at it is to look at a scatter diagram, and it's the one that I use myself more. So you click the button and it brings the yield, so you can see the yield levels of all of the experiments, and in yellow will be the actual data point from Katanning. So you can see that compared to a lot of other results, it's on the lowish end. And there's the wheat after canola, and there's a 1-to-1 line. Points above the 1-to-1 line show you that wheat after canola out yields wheat after wheat in the trials. And that's a nice way to just put yourself into perspective. So if you're not getting results, you can see how often that occurs, or if you're getting very good returns like these ones here where wheat after wheat's really bad but wheat after canola is really good, and that's often because of root diseases like take-all, and in some instances weed control, but mostly root diseases. You can see whether how often that happens, but also you can picture where you fit compared to our data set. So there we go, it's a little snapshot, and the good thing about it is that you can go up again to the top and just change canola to say lupin, which is our biggest data set for trials. So if we pick lupin, you scroll down, you can see all of the data points for wheat after lupins compared to wheat after wheat. Much bigger data set for that, and again you can see that our result for wheat after lupins is not as good as most experiments. And as Katanning, we didn't have a lot of root diseases, didn't have a lot of grass challenge, and it really is a nitrogen effect, and we fed the crop fairly well, so we're not getting as big a difference as a lot of the historical data. Anyway, hopefully that gives you an idea of how to use it. And of course, if there are any questions, you can contact our officers at the Department of Agriculture that are listed below, who will talk you through either using the tool or some of the background information and the data that's sitting behind it. So hopefully that works for you. Thanks.